Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. FOMO, fear of missing out. It's almost like we have so many choices that we're not available to what's actually happening. We're not present with everything in our daily life. If we were present, we would live in a more balanced way. We would let go of stuff without regret. It's as if we eat junk food and remain unsatisfied because we lack real nourishment. People say, I don't have any time. But you have to move from I don't have enough time to I'm making time to enjoy my life. You got to give yourself time. Whether you're studying learning a musical instrument, take time for that which takes time. You got to do reps. You got to do it. And even though life keeps changing all around us, the mind likes to dig in its heels. And remember, as George Harrison said, it's all in the mind. Yes. It's unbelievable because if you give yourself the choice between hanging on or being happy, which do you choose? Most people choose hanging on. But a few minutes of mindfulness every day will carry over. The teaching helps you learn how to swim and go with the current. When you're meditating, don't worry if thoughts keep coming back. That's natural. It's common. Just keep letting go each time. Because when you let go of how you think things should be, you can respond to challenging situations with openness and flexibility. You can imagine options and alternatives that can't arise when you're in the contraction of your mind instead of the expansion. So I always say, what story do you believe now? When you look at words like kindness or trouble, what images come up just from the word? Can you imagine the kind of images that come up from the stories that we tell ourselves? If a word can tangibly affect your mind, imagine what your own story can tell yourself. So I hope you can look in the mirror and say, I deserve to enjoy my life because I'm doing good things in the world. I'm kind to myself and other people, and I'm learning to open to joy when it arises. It's all in the mind. Anyway, with that being said, I like to make a comparison between aspects of psychotherapy and Buddhism or yoga because each are concerned with human suffering, with the symptoms that come up, how to diagnose this, what the prognosis is, and the treatment of it. They're similar and they recognize that we all tend to go towards pleasure and move away from pain. So everybody has this, it's called attachment to what you want and aversion to things that you don't want. What's interesting about this is that in the Eastern approach, the Orientocentric, the self is a transcending subjectivity. That you view yourself and you realize there's a higher self, a more profound self, an overview that transcends your psychological nature. Whereas in psychotherapy, they say that the self is a narrative construction. It's a story you make up about yourself. And of course, from the Eastern point of view, strengthening yourself causes more pain, clinging, suffering. And it makes you neglect the psychological perspectives by dismissing them as ultimately unimportant. It's not that therapy isn't meaningful, but it's endless. But from psychotherapy, they remind the transcendent qualities of Eastern philosophy of the dangers of what it calls self-nullification and the ability to attach and bond to others. Both techniques require listening, and neither one really wants you to have an escape from intimacy, but transform your relationships with other people so that you're enriched and not drained by encounters with others. In the West, we have a culturally sanctioned neurosis by being preoccupied with the sovereignty of the self, And they say in the same way in Eastern philosophy, clinging to personal existence, it's called abhinavesha, does the same thing. So I hope that through practicing and studying one's own psychology, we can realize that we can exchange neurotic suffering for common human misery. And then we all have the solidarity as we understand that life itself is filled with suffering. So the twin dangers is to accept religion uncritically without examining it, or pathologizing and say it's a bunch of superstitious crap and we just automatically reject it. But it's fallacious to equate religious involvement with psychological maturity or religious disbelief with psychological maturity. Religious involvement with psychological immaturity and religious disbelief with psychological maturity. That's a handful. Think about that. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.